Adult children of helicopter parents, how do you deal with them now? They say things, and I just kind go like I'm agreeing that I will do those things. But never verbally say I will do those things. My dad was never a helicopter parent, he was actually the complete opposite. My mom was a super helicopter parent. When I was a sophomore in high school I got grounded from everything. I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. I had to go to school and come home. I couldn't watch TV unless it was about God. I didn't have a phone, or computer, and couldn't listen to music. For months. It got worse and worse as time went on. She would give me a curfew randomly one day and it would be different the next day. I would get in trouble for not following a curfew I had no idea existed. She gaslighted me so much that I often felt like I deserved what was happening to me. After going to therapy I am better able to identify her abusive bipolar tendencies. I'm working on minimizing contact with her. So, whenever she's being a pain in my ass I just tell her to fuck off. Edit I took out irrelevant information. They still helicopter me, actually now more than ever that I'm 24 and I'm not sure what suddenly turned the dial up. However I'm finally planning on moving out for good this year with my boyfriend. Every time I bring it up, they don't believe me or they think I'm kidding and say it isn't happening. Oh well, I did tell them. I guess they'll get a reality check when the time comes and it won't be on me. I just say no when I'm told to do something or follow a rule. I don't give a reason, even when I'm asked why. It's satisfying. I'm not antsy with them but I'm absolutely firm on my boundaries and standing up for myself, and I don't let their tantrums sway me. On the other hand, the pressure does eat at me, but I'll never let them know that. My parents weren't. But a friend moved to a different state and got engaged and my friend's mom still managed to be a helicopter parent. Visiting at least 3 times a month and contacting either her or her so constantly. It ruined the engagement because the so finally had enough because even though my friend was annoyed with her mom as well, she couldn't cut her mom off completely. I'd call the details but it must have been super annoying if someone was like I love you, but fuck having in-laws like this. She is now single and has moved back home. It's unfortunate. Honestly me and my husband are trying to figure this out. My mill is a total helicopter parent if one of us my husband, or his brother doesn't respond to her messages within an hour or two, she'll bombard the other two about where we are if something happened to us. She freaked out on me when I didn't respond to her after 3 hours we were doing a cross-country drive and accused me of trying to shut her out and said we're never going to be a real family because of the walls I've built up around myself. I don't know what to do. My husband won't stand up to her as much as I want him to. But I can't do this for the rest of my life. We have to establish some boundaries, but it's not my mom, so I can't be the one to initiate. I am low contact. A lot of us go low or no contact. Hold on, let me go ask my mom. I ignore them. To be honest, it's also because I'm in a different city and have a hectic job. But there was also a period of slowly getting them used to the fact that they would not know and control every detail of my adult life. I had to be extremely mean and blunt with my mom. I'm a mid-30s married man, and had to straight up tell her that I have a family and my own life and she needs to go get a hobby or take classes or anything whatsoever that will give her a sense of value because I do not need a goddamn interfering invasive mother any longer. When she started giving me either the "that's so horrible you'd talk to your mother that way" or the "oh no my kids don't need me anymore," I literally flat out had to just say I don't give a shit mom. Go work it out. I had to be super mean to her about it. Sometimes parents have to cut their children off, and sometimes children have to cut their parents off. Doesn't make me feel good but I sleep fine. My brother and I had no free time allowed growing up, just music and homework allowed. Age 30, my dad has passed away now. He was never the problem but my mom still does her best to control our lives, inserting herself into situations she doesn't belong, and passive-aggressively putting us in situations that she wants to happen. But cutting her off or telling her she's overstepping makes us the bad ones in her mind. Edited for clarity, so minimal contact and details are all that's on the menu for her from me now. Man shrugging, my brother doesn't get it though, giving her minute details and then getting annoyed when she thinks she can have a say in how he lives his life. Stone cold boundaries and a residence more than 1,000 miles away. Edit. Thank you all for my first silvers. Edit 2 and gold. My husband deals with this with his mother. We make decisions as a married couple, then later everything changes after they talk to each other. Even situations dealing with our daughter, like I have no say even when he and I were on the same page before decisions were put into action. He is so desperate to please his mom he turns his back on me. When I confront him he blames me for causing drama or being petty. IDK his mom acts like she is his wife and he lets it happen. It grosses me out. My parents track my location at all times now. I'm 27. That way they don't call the cops if I don't pick up within 30 has happened multiple times. Unfortunately, the helicopter behavior continued after I got married and had children. Eventually, the only way to gain control was to go no contact. Fundamentally it boiled down to a complete lack of respect for boundaries. My happiness, marriage, and ability to be a good parent were all suffering because my mother was still trying to control my life. We tried setting up boundaries, but that only escalated things. I would have gladly gone to family counseling if she agreed, but it was far easier for her to complain to her friends that her children don't speak to her. Yes, my brother cut her off too. I strongly recommend the following books: Stop Walking on Eggshells by Paul Mason and Boundaries by Henry Cloud. I also very strongly recommend counseling. 1. I moved to a different country. 2. I do not go back to visit. 3. When they come visit they stay in a hotel. 4. My husband, who was not raised in an overbearing environment, is always present when they visit. He serves as a reality check and is effective in shutting down misbehavior. 5. I'm going to have to explain one day that they won't be allowed unsupervised visits with any children I have. Games allowed. I could only ever play Minecraft with my friends, could not close doors other than bathroom, could not lock bathroom doors, could not spend your own money without parents' approval first, could not play on computer unless they were home. Obviously this rule got broken a lot. No social media at all. The one that got me the most though was until high school we could only have sleepovers at our house and could not go to most birthday parties. Getting out of the house to stay with someone else for a little was an absolute godsend. I loved being independent and stupid with my money and being able to play whatever games I want when I want. So yeah, that's kinda what it's like. I ended up having to remove my parents from my life and at first it was really hard. But seriously, they've controlled every aspect of it. When I was a kid my internet time was limited and supervised. I was allowed like an hour a day on electronics. I wasn't allowed to play any violent video games. I really only played Mario Kart. I wasn't allowed to play Pokemon because it had evolution in it. I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter because it was magic and magic is bad. They decided which college I went to when I was 18. They decided which degree I got. When I was struggling to find work they pushed me to go into a field I didn't want to, which I am now stuck in. When I was sick as well, it was really rare I went to the doctor. At one point I was dying from a bad case of pneumonia and they refused to hospitalize me even though I was almost dead, quite literally. My lungs were full of fluid and my oxygen level was running at 82. Even on oxygen that number didn't go up. Once I moved out of my house, I started to talk to them less until last year I finally just decided to cut them off. Talking to them gave me anxiety and they always tried to steer my life a different direction, so I figured it was better to cut them off completely. At first it was hard but it's gotten easier over time. Not me but my wife. My Mill is a huge helicopter parent. She calls my wife several times a day about the most minor things. It's my wife's fault for picking up but she has been conditioned by years of guilting. It sucks, has impacted our marriage, caused a number of arguments, and has caused me to have a serious dislike of my mother-in-law. And we have a kid now so things are much worse than they were before. She's now a helicopter grandparent that acts like she is entitled to see my child. She throws little pity party tantrums if she goes more than a few days without seeing my daughter. She tries to tell us how to do absolutely everything and always has some 2 cents to throw into our choices. I'm a stay-at-home dad and my wife is a teacher so we don't need her help or advice. One nice nugget of advice was that we didn't need to tell my daughter she was black. I'm black. My wife is white. My only sanity saver was that she lived 30-40 minutes away. She just moved closer and that we got into a huge fight where I and my mother told her what we thought of her. There was a lot of yelling and crying that night. I stopped making any kind of effort to have a nice relationship with her and she is uncomfortable being around my mother. They tried to ground me after I came back from serving in the Marine Corps. Tried to take the keys to the car I own and prevent me from getting an education. Told my mom she can pound dirt and my dad that if he didn't fix himself and nut up to my overbearing mom, I'd never talk to the two of them again. Got in my car and drove off. Was homeless for a minute until I got enough for an apartment. You'd think that me moving out and being homeless instead of living with them would be the thing that made things click. No. About a year after my move out, I'd reconnected with my family and agreed to take my mom to her aerobics class one day since her car was in the shop. Well, I drive about 10 minutes before she lays into me about my life choices etc. I pulled the car over, looked at her and said, "Get out." She looked stunned. I just repeated myself and added, "Now." She got out. I drove off to my apartment, played some CSGO and she got her much needed exercise. I started standing up for myself and telling them off, but I also struggle with being self-sufficient, especially with ADHD, so it's a vicious cycle. Especially when I can't afford to move out. Standing up for things they don't agree with is pretty useless. I got yelled at for politely requiring consent every time my mom logs into my university student email account to help me manage my stuff, Plus she doesn't even do it when she grudgingly agreed after she was done being offended. I remember her announcing to me over dinner she had gone in my account and enrolled me in a class for my bachelor's without asking me first while I was away at school. As an adult this makes me very uncomfortable. Edit. Fuck it, you guys are right, I'm changing my password. Live. I will get yelled at so bad but worth it. My parents weren't really helicopter parents until I was in high school, and then it was fucking insane. I was in high school about 10 years ago now, but cell phones were the norm, access to social media was pretty regular, etc. My parents responded to one of my not-so-great moments as a 17-year-old by taking away my phone, only letting me use my computer in the same room as them with the screen facing them at all times, would pick me up and drop me off from school, wouldn't let me visit my friends and would only let approved friends come to my house, installed cameras throughout the house so that when they weren't there they could make sure I wasn't going anywhere, etc. We're actually good now. I think once I went to college and then subsequently dropped out and took a couple years off, they realized the hyper-attentiveness wasn't what I needed and only made me pull away more. Additionally, it probably helped that they saw me go through relatively difficult situations entirely on my own. There's a mutual respect now, ease of communication, and just general comfort I never knew growing up. All that being said, I would never recommend parents of high school children act like mine did. If you want your children to trust you and be honest, you need to show them that you are willing to trust them. Also, my parents were fucking letting me run around alone through the city for most of my youth, and so the sudden dictatorial behavior was super startling and made me rebel more. In Asia we call them parents. I am so scared my kid will feel I'm micromanaging him because he's with his dad every other week and they treat him as an adult because he's the oldest kid in that household. I give him privacy and trust and responsibilities, but he's lazy and doesn't manage on his own because he barely tries. You all gave me a lot to think about. Went no contact with my helicopter mom in May of 2018. I was 25. She sent me bi-weekly emails trying to talk to me. Texted me random things like a photo of her cat, from her phone and her husband's phone. Her last email consisted of her telling me she was going to come over to my house and if I wasn't there, she was going to come to my work to find me. A week after that email, I packed up everything and moved 1,200 miles away without telling her. She messaged a woe-is-me sob story to my so's mom about how worried she is because she can't find me. Still talks to her to this day. Then on this past Saturday, she calls my job and says, "Hi, switched, this is mom." I hung up immediately and am now seriously searching for jobs. I don't care what it is, I need to change jobs now. I'd get a restraining order but she is just out of the legal requirement for stalking. A lawyer laughed at me when I asked them if I can have one. Edit. A week after, not 5 days. She sent me that email on June 21st and I bounced on June 28th. I went no contact almost a year ago has been the best piece in my adult life. I got married and moved halfway across the country. We didn't talk and she didn't even know what town we lived in for 6 months. I think she realized that if you treat your child like they're stupid or incapable without you they won't want to have a relationship anymore. My siblings have life so much easier now so that makes up for it a little. They have friends, they don't have to make plans a week in advance so she can think about giving them permission. They actually have fucking hobbies that make them happy. She's now the kind of mom I wish I had growing up and while it does sting a little, I'm glad for them. Move to a different country. Keep contact to a minimum. I mentioned having helicopter parents at one of my family gatherings. Parents were inside. Without missing a beat my uncle corrected me saying helicopter parents? PFFT, more like AC-130 parents. To get them off back I went the hard route of years of disappointing them till they just stopped giving a fuck. Do not recommend this route. I'm a 35 years old female IT project manager making 6 figures for the last 7 years. My mother was an elementary school teacher, but mostly a stay-at-home mom. When my dad died, she moved close to me. I like knowing I am her go-to person, and know I can do anything she needs I don't want to. She is forever giving me career advice, without having any idea what it is like in my field in this century. I keep reminding her that she has no concept of my world. I was and am deeply empathetic to teachers, but she will never understand being a new analyst, racking a data center or developing an algorithm to save a client $4 million a year. She doesn't see how hard I work mentally and emotionally to then run off to Vegas for a weekend. Well, my mother flew a Eurocopter AS-350 and did paid tours of New York City, New York. My father flew a Bell 1 Iroquois during a deployment to Afghanistan. My father is a retired veteran running his own bait and tackle shop, and my mom still does occasional tours from their house in upstate New York. They are both lovely and I adore them dearly. Thanks for asking. I grew up understanding their overprotective ways weren't good for my development when I get over. Boy, I did not know or could comprehend how much they held me back in life until I got older and out of the house. I don't fault them though. I grew up in the South in a very Christian household in a small town. My family was only doing what they thought was best for me. I see a lot of people on Reddit call their parents toxic and hate them, but I don't have those feelings toward mine. I feel like my family had good intentions, but the way they went about it wasn't correct. I can't blame my family for that because they was only acting how they knew to, especially in a world where they don't understand. Edit. Thank you all who took the time to read my post. I didn't expect any likes at all. Still stuck in her house. Look at this as you want more details. It got better when I started college, which was really surprising to me. We have a really good relationship now and I've forgiven her for preventing me from making any kind of strong connections with friends. She didn't really let me hang out with friends outside of school except like one girl BC. They were very close with her parents and all of my boyfriends for some reason, so I ended up having a lot of boyfriends lol. Besides that, she was a great mom. My older sister still resents her though, even though she has apologized for it. My mom definitely has a sort of extreme anxiety paranoia that went without help or her even realizing it until I talked with her about it one day. I try to help her as much as I can whenever she is feeling that way and she's making a visible effort to try and change. It's very hard of course, but I have seen a lot of progress. Added. My mom was not isolating or abusive despite what I said. It's a lot more complicated than the above and I don't feel like explaining it because of the complexity. However, just don't speak negatively about my mom please, because she actually is an amazing woman who I love very much and do not appreciate the accusations of abuse. It's extremely annoying and your child will resent you, not to mention a weak parent-child relationship with a base of mistrust and no privacy. It became more manageable for my husband once he moved out of home. She's still absolutely a helicopter over our toddler. We've come to understand her helicopter behavior was about her anxiety, so we do our best to keep her informed within reason about our whereabouts. But really, we are adults, so she doesn't need to supervise us or have contact with our employees' friends anymore. We just get used to her stalking our Facebook and Instagram. I don't. Moved 2,000 miles away the day I turned 18 and never looked back. I had ended up going NC with my parents for 5 years and in the past couple years we've reconnected. I've noticed that they're trying to be more conscious of privacy and boundaries, not only with me but the rest of my siblings, but it's still kind of awkward. Sometimes part of having helicopter parents is getting good at lying and hiding who you truly are, so it's hard to get out of the mindset that they're mistrustful of you or disappointed in you. I do think they've attempted to evolve though, and it's nice to see. When I was 30, I got diagnosed with ADHD, and my parents' helicoptering suddenly made sense. I found it hard to get things done all through my life. I found it extremely hard to socialize and I always found myself the outcast, and this was all because of ADHD. Every single time my parents let me do something all by myself, things would fuck up spectacularly. Either in small funny ways, or large, crazy ways. But when my parents hovered over me, gave me encouragement, and advocated for me, I'd transform into a smart, brilliant child who amazed everyone with my talents and skills. This gave them a lot of anxiety and they were afraid to leave me alone. They didn't understand it, and I did well at school, so no one suspected ADHD. It was easier to just help me out and advocate for me than the alternative. It's taken me a lot of therapy to deal with my ADHD and to tell my parents what it's all about. It took a while for them to accept that that's what was wrong with me. It helped a lot that my husband told them all the ways my ADHD manifested and they realized it wasn't just my little quirks. I've convinced my parents now that I know how to live my life. I have held down the same job for 3 years now and I'm doing well. I discovered KonMari and I stopped being messy. I've completed a few long-term projects, mentored my siblings and am supporting the family financially. They basically just want to know I'm fine. Once they gain that confidence, they find it easier to let go.